Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another jam-packed episode of Big Game Bound. We're into week 8 of the NFL season. We still have 2 undefeated teams, the Patriots and the 49ers, and 2 winless teams, the Dolphins and the Bengals. And the NFC West is the only division without a team with a losing record. Coming up on this show, the NFL Players of the Week. We'll give out the big shout-outs. What the Halleck, Ty Halleck, will give us his mid-season MVP and his new top 5. The big matchups that will break down 49ers and Panthers, Packers and Chiefs. Our big guest, the Morning Men from SiriusXM Radio, and Bob Harris is here to hand out some fantasy football advice. Let's start with our Players of the Week, and there would be an investigation if Aaron Rodgers didn't win the NFC Offensive Player of the Week this week. He threw for 429 yards and 5 touchdowns in the Packers' win over the Raiders. He also ran for a touchdown. The Packers are 6-1. The AFC Offensive Player of the Week is Colts quarterback Jacoby Brissett. He's made life without Andrew Luck a lot better than people would have expected. Brissett threw for 4 touchdown passes in the Colts' big win over the Texans. Indy is in first place in the AFC South. The AFC Defensive Player of the Week is Buffalo cornerback Tre'Davious White. His pick and forced fumble against Miami led to 15 points and helped the Bills improve to 5-1. The NFC Defensive Player of the Week is Chandler Jones of the Arizona Cardinals. 4 sacks and a forced fumble. He also had a fumble recovery in the Cardinals' win over the Giants. After a rough start, Arizona is now 3-1. Let's bring in Ty Halleck now for What the Halleck. Ty played 7 seasons in the National Football League with the Lions, Jaguars, and Bears, and we talk about various topics each week. And Ty, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Kirk Cousins, who was really struggling, apologized to his receivers, and he got ripped for that. He's been ripped for his play. But the last 3 weeks, he's played like an MVP. What's happened there?
Well, I think it's a combination of a couple of things. Certainly you, like any family would do or teams do and good teammates do, air it out. Certainly not necessarily in the public eye, you would think, but I think they did it. I think they flushed it out. I think Kirk Cousins wasn't a victim in that. I think he said to himself, all right, what is it I need to do better, which I think good leaders do, good quarterbacks do. He upped his play. He probably challenged his teammates to do the same, and they're running the football. Let's think about this. Dalvin Cook last week against the Detroit Lions ran for 142 yards, and they weren't able to stop him. And by doing that, when you crowd the box, what does it give you? Play action pass. And I think they figured out with Kirk Cousins, he's very comfortable in those play action pass fakes and rolling him out and getting him in areas where he's got some high-low receivers and he can just deliver the football or, get rid of it, throw it out of bounds, and move on to the next play. So I think the offense has kind of come into something. I think Kirk Cousins has, and I think they've kind of figured out where their talents are, particularly with Dalvin Cook, and that helps a lot when you got a running back that's running well.
And we both know Cook very well, and he can lead. That is his strongest quality. All right, halfway through the season, who's your MVP?
Well, you kind of throw out some of the ones that are at the tip of the tongue. Patrick Mahomes, certainly what he's doing early on. It's easy to talk about Aaron Rodgers. It's easy to talk about Christian McCaffrey down in Carolina and how much he's doing as an all-purpose back. I look at the New England's defense. I mean, they're doing stuff that's historical. If you look at this, their point margin of 25 points is like unheard of since like 1920 of the Buffalo All-Americans, they're telling me. So, I mean, that's kind of crazy. They're giving up less than a touchdown a game, which has only been done like a couple of times since the 60s. So, I mean, it's unbelievable. And you think about this, for all the games, Jack, 12 times only in 7 games has the New England Patriots given up the third down conversion. So and they're stopping people on first and second down. So they've got a lot of third downs that professional teams are trying to convert on. They've given up only 12. That's amazing. I would go with the defense of the New England Patriots as opposed to a player at this point.
I think you're right. All right, which coach? We've seen one, Gruden, get fired. Who's on the hot seat right now?
Well, I think there's 4 or 5 guys. You talk about Dan Quinn with Atlanta, who's completely underperformed after having heights of the Super Bowl. Anthony Lynn of the LA Chargers. These guys are so up and down and yo-yo, you're not sure what's going on, and they can't even get fans coming to the stadium. Adam Gase, the New York Jets. I mean, I don't know. From his day one of his interview, you didn't know where it went, and now his quarterback seeing ghosts. So I'm not sure where that one goes. Zach Taylor, certainly at Cincinnati, not exactly the splash that they were thinking. Doug Peterson of Philly, got to watch out a little bit. And I think Pat Shurmur of the New York Giants. There's plenty of guys. I think the last 2 are probably ones that maybe another year or two down the road, given their particular circumstances and the fact that Philly was in a Super Bowl. But there's plenty of guys right now that better get their stuff in order, or like we always say in the National Football League, NFL stands for not for long.
Yeah, and Sam Darnold seeing ghosts. I think that tells you just how scary that New England defense is. Your top 5, I know we got another shakeup.
Another shakeup, if I go to number 5, the Indianapolis Colts. Jacoby Brissett, I mean, unbelievable last week. What he's doing and how they went in and beat the Texans. 326 yards, 4 touchdowns, unbelievable. Number 4, New Orleans, they just keep staying steady with Teddy Bridgewater, And you know, when you look at it in terms of this, Alvin Kamara and Jared Cook were out last week. Latavius Murray ran for 120 yards, unbelievable. Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers, 429 yards, 5 touchdowns on 31 pass attempts against the Raiders. And he absolutely killed it. They're doing very well, and a hot Aaron Rodgers doesn't make anybody happy in the National Football League. I stuck with San Francisco 49ers. They continue to win. They do good things. Even in a sloppy event where they could have let one get away from them in Washington, they took care of business. And then the New England Patriots. We talk about their defense. We talk about Tom Brady and what they're doing on offense, which they don't even have to do as much because of that historical start to this defense. Unbelievable. I think the New England Patriots continue to be the top of the National Football League.
Let's break down a couple of the big matchups. First, Packers at Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium. This is the Sunday night game on NBC. We'll start in Kansas City. Let me introduce you to Rob Collins from Fox 4. Rob, the Chiefs are 1-2 at home this year. Why have they struggled at Arrowhead?
Yeah, you know what? This is a huge game for the Kansas City Chiefs playing the Green Bay Packers. And as far as struggling at Arrowhead, I think it has to do more with the opponents they've played at home rather than the Chiefs themselves. Because let's look at the teams that have beaten the Chiefs at Arrowhead, Houston and Indy. Now, both of these teams probably playoff teams. They both have great quarterbacks in Jacoby Brissett and Deshaun Watson. Take a look at some of the stats from the Indy game. The Colts racked up 180 yards rushing. The Chiefs had only 36 yards rushing, and they had 11 penalties in that game. Chiefs did not help themselves at all in that game. We go to the Houston game. Well, Houston ran the ball very well, 192 yards against the Chiefs, and the Chiefs, they only had the ball for 20 minutes, and in that 20 minutes, they only got 53 yards rushing. So in both of those games, the Chiefs did not get 100 yards rushing. I think that's been a point of emphasis ever since.
We've seen the big storyline in Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes, the dislocated kneecap. We've seen the Saints thrive without Drew Brees. The Panthers haven't lost a game since Cam Newton was injured. Can the Chiefs follow suit if Mahomes misses serious time?
That's going to be pretty tough. And actually today, Patrick Mahomes was back at practice today. Believe it or not, less than a week after putting his kneecap back in place on national TV, Mahomes was back out on the practice field at the facility this afternoon. He had limited practice. He was taking a couple snaps, taking a few throws, didn't do a whole lot. Matt Moore took most of the first team reps. We expect here that Matt Moore will play. And Coach Reid has had success with the backup quarterbacks. He's done it 4 times with the backup coming in. He's won 3 of those games, 2 with Chase Daniel. And remember, one of those was Patrick Mahomes in Denver back in 2017. But the Chiefs have a couple of tough games coming up. It's going to be hard for them to replicate the success that you talked about with the Saints having. The Saints also have a much better defense than the Chiefs do right now. And Carolina, man, what Allen's doing there is just unbelievable. But the Chiefs have Packers, then they have Minnesota. Those are going to be 2 tough games for them to win. And then it comes Tennessee and the Chargers. I think everybody here in Chiefs Kingdom a little nervous about these games. But if the Chiefs can somehow go 2-2 in these next 4 games, get Mahomes after the bye week, which my personal opinion is when he should come back, then they'll be good to go because let's face it, this division is not that great.
No, that's true. And if Mahomes is out and they have to go with Moore, how different is that playbook? Because the Chiefs must see TV when Mahomes is in that lineup.
Yeah, most definitely. Mahomes' magic on display when 15 is in the lineup. Matt Moore talked about that earlier. Matt Moore said, you know, a couple of months ago, he was coaching high school football, and then he's thrust into the bright lights on Thursday night against Denver. But Coach Reid, again, has had success. Matt Moore's been in the system. He knows some of the Coach Reid playbook. I'll see them dialing it back a little bit, but not a whole lot because Matt Moore's taken a lot of the reps, you know, with the other teams in practice. So we'll just see how that goes. But the Chiefs have to do something. They have to get that running game going, as we talked about a little bit earlier. Kind of the Chiefs have to flip the script in a way because teams are trying to keep the ball away from Patrick Mahomes. Well, especially Sunday night, the Chiefs are going to have to keep the ball away from Mr. Rodgers.
He is the NFC Player of the Week coming. He's just red hot right now. Anybody in Kansas City nervous the way that defense is playing?
Everybody's nervous about the defense, man. Everybody's nervous every game about the defense. Other than the Denver game, the defense came to play in that Denver game. And if you go back and look at it, the defense was playing well even before Patrick Mahomes got hurt. I was there at that game. The defense was looking great on that first drive. I know Denver scored. They had a couple of penalties that helped them out. But after that, the Chiefs rolled off 30 straight points after they scored and did not get that two-point conversion. Sort of a rallying cry for the team after Patrick Mahomes went down. So we'll see what the defense does, but they are definitely going to have to step up. And the Chiefs, to win this game with Matt Moore at quarterback against Aaron Rodgers Sunday night, coming off that massive roasting of the Raiders, they're going to pretty much have to play perfect football on the defensive side, and we haven't seen that just yet.
For the Packers' perspective, we take you to Green Bay. Burke Griffin joins us again. Burke, are they relieved they don't have to face Patrick Mahomes, or disappointed?
Well, I think they're relieved, that's for sure. You win anytime you're going to face the reigning MVP in the NFL. That's definitely a downgrade to Matt Moore or anybody else who's going to play the position across the entire league. Now, they won't publicly say that, oh, we're glad that Patrick Mahomes isn't playing. But those defensive guys, they know what kind of game he brings out there on the field, not only scrambling, but throwing the football. And the Packers defense, they have been suspect against the run. And while they are 6-1 and their sack totals are up and their interception numbers are up, they have been giving up a ton of yardage.
All right, Aaron Rodgers has had this Hall of Fame career, struggled with injuries in recent years. On Sunday, one of his best performances ever. Does he have enough weapons around him with this team that we could see him win that MVP again?
Well, consider this, 429 yards passing, 5 touchdowns through the air to 5 different receivers. He spread the ball around to 8 different guys in that win on Sunday. And oh, by the way, no interceptions again. I think without Davante Adams in the lineup, keep that in mind. Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Geronimo Allison were their clear number 2 and 3 on the roster. So when Davante comes back from that turf toe, and this offense really week by week by week has really started to click. 42 points against the Raiders. Now, Oakland is a team on the rise, but that's a lot of points for a guy who's slightly putting his name back into that MVP conversation.
Yeah, it's a little scary right now. Now, 4 of the Packers' next 5 games, Burke, are on the road. 3 of the 4, their next 4 against teams with winning records. In this next month here, what are we going to learn about this Packer team?
We're going to learn a lot because last year they had 6 wins all season. Right now they already have matched that number at 6-1. Now, when the schedule comes out, you, me, everyone around the country, fans, they look at that schedule and go, win, win, loss, win, this is hard. At the beginning of this season, looking at that 4 out of 5, it was like, oh my gosh, the Chargers are a good team from the playoffs last season. You got Kansas City, obviously, Sunday night. You come home against Carolina, always dangerous with Cam Newton, not anymore, clearly. And then you had the Giants, and you also have the 49ers. On paper, those 4 out of 5 on the road, the Niners look like that might have been the one easy win, and they are the only team left unbeaten in the NFL right now in the NFC. Obviously, New England is still undefeated. But when you look at that 4 out of 5, if they take 3 out of those 5 games and maybe 2-2 on the road, if they can beat Carolina at home, you're sitting pretty going into December.
The other really interesting matchup in the NFL this week is in San Francisco, where the undefeated 49ers will be put to the test. They take on 4-2 Carolina, 4 straight wins without Cam Newton. Marc Carpenter is the sports director at Cron in San Francisco. He makes another appearance on Big Game Bound. Who has the better defense right now, the 49ers or the Patriots?
Well, that depends, right? Because if you talk about the 49ers, you can take them in a one-game sample where anything can happen, and that really depends on what happens with that 49ers pass rush, because they have first-rounders across the board: DeForest Buckner, Bosa, Solomon Thomas, Eric Armstead, Dee Ford, Quan Alexander. They can pressure the quarterback, they can generate turnovers, and they can get sacks. However, you mentioned the New England Patriots. That is probably one of the most terrifying defenses we've ever seen. I mean, already in the conversation with the 2000 Ravens, the Broncos when they won the Super Bowl with Von Miller, what we saw from the Legion of Boom, and especially scary Monday night. I know it was against the New York Jets, But what the Patriots defense has been able to do, leading the league in interceptions, forcing fumbles, I just think they're a more complete unit at all levels. D-line, linebackers, secondary, really a complete unit, which is just what Tom Brady and Bill Belichick needed right after 6 Super Bowls. Just an amazing defense.
Yeah, they have 11 players and some ghosts. Mark, the last time we talked, it felt like, wow, the 49ers are off to a great start. But now they're looking really good. Are people starting to believe that they're back to being a contender?
Well, after that LA Rams game, more and more of the 49er faithful were already started to make playoff and Super Bowl arrangements here because that was supposed to be the prove-it game, right? But then you look back at it afterwards where, you know, they beat the Redskins and they get the win against the Browns and all of that, and it's like, okay, now, you have one faction of fans who are all about this team. They're ready to make postseason plans. But there's still another faction where it's like, okay, hold on here. What does it look like in the back half of the schedule when you play the Seahawks twice, the Saints, the Packers, the Ravens, even the Panthers? They are a very scary team and, you know, could pull off an upset Sunday at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. So we know this. The 49ers are a good team, and you can consider them one of the top teams in the league. But are they the best team in the NFC? I don't know. We have to see the games against the Packers and the Saints. And also, too, if you get to the Super Bowl, the Patriots are right there. But they are a contender. But just how legitimate of a contender they are, still a few more weeks to go. Still a lot more football to be played.
Yeah, Mark, usually when you play Carolina, the biggest concern is trying to stop Cam Newton. They've won 4 straight without him. What's their biggest concern with Carolina this week?
Well, a lot of fans were worried about that Rams game a couple of weeks ago. Okay, that was the prove-it game. Is this team for real? But I could say that Carolina is probably the best team the 49ers will be seeing thus far. They are certainly the most complete and healthy team. Kyle Allen, the backup QB, playing like a starter. He's undefeated. Now, there are 2 threats when you're talking about the Panthers. One, Christian McCaffrey, what he's able to do. He's so dynamic. He's a running threat. He's a catching threat. And he really opens up the offense. And it seems that the Panthers have figured out that the offense needs to run through Christian McCaffrey, all right? And Cam Newton, he was so hurt in the beginning of the year. What Kyle Allen was able to bring and just really distribute the ball, not screw it up, really, and let McCaffrey take it over on offense. They've been so effective. And we talked about the 49ers and Patriots defense at the beginning of this interview. Carolina's defense, that unit is for real as well. They actually lead the league in sacks with 27. So Jimmy Garoppolo, he'll be seeing some pressure, and they force a lot of turnovers. So, I mean, this is really a complete Carolina team, and people are already circling their calendars for the Seahawks game as like, oh, that could be the first 49ers loss. I don't know. The Panthers are certainly capable of coming in and pulling off the upset, Jack.
Our big guests this week are staples on the sports lineup of Sirius XM Radio. Every morning, they bring you sports talk from a guy's perspective. Evan Cohen and Mike Babchak are Sirius XM's morning men. They host their aptly named show every weekday morning from 6 a.m. to 10 on Mad Dog Sports Radio from New York City. Guys, thanks for joining us. For anyone who doesn't know, tell us a little about your show and how you guys linked up.
Well, we've been on the air since 2011. That was a big point.
I just want, before we start.
We just started. This is the show. The show is that we talk sports and we talk to sports fans, but weird things like this happen where Mike gives a big point to start a hit on TV, and for some reason that he thinks that's going to resonate. That all of a sudden now his football expertise and fandom is really going to shine through because he got the big
I want everyone to try it at home, okay, while you're watching. Just pop that finger up and go, boom.
And that works well on radio?
Yeah, that's what we do in radio.
Yeah, we give a lot of visual cues on radio. It really works well. Now you can understand why our show has gotten to the level it's gotten to. But we've been on Mad Dog Sports Radio since 2011. Obviously, we talk sports, but we talk about other stuff as well. Food, games, just all kinds of exciting pop culture news. And we make fun of Mike for doing ridiculous things like that.
Well, I mean, as I see the visual here, I mean, I'm going to be Jose Altuve. Here's Aaron Judge. I mean, look at it. Why am I so tiny?
Because you are so tiny.
Am I really this small?
Yes.
I was going to ask, are you that much bigger than Mike?
I am 6'1". Mike is about 5'1".
Oh, wait a minute.
You know, if you sit up here,
you just took some HGH.
Yeah, nobody needs that face that close, so I'm going to lean back a little bit. But yeah, Evan's much taller than me. He's the former quarterback, so also the QB perspective.
That's high school.
Yeah, but he once threw 8 interceptions in a single game. Don't forget that.
That's true.
So he's Eli Manning. All right, so how in the world do you guys prepare for a show at 6 a.m. When most of the stuff that happens late at night?
Well, the good thing for Mike is he doesn't.
I don't.
And I am supposed to watch the games, and I am supposed to have all kinds of different analysis and takes for these games. But I think that, listen, it's not, it's not like we're digging ditches here. It's better than being a plumber, right? As Bill Belichick would say. And that's no disrespect to plumbers. So what? We got to stay up late and watch games. We got to watch Monday Night Football and the World Series and the NBA and so on and so forth. Big deal. We get to talk about it with great fans out there and have fun with it each and every morning. So we do a lot of our prep at night. Mike comes in early. At least he tells our bosses he does. And then when I get in before him, he's not there. So I don't know how early he really gets in. But that's how we do it. A lot of night prep, and then obviously in the morning we kind of fine-tune our chaos going into the show at 6 a.m. Eastern.
There's something called highlights. It's amazing. It's like a 2-minute package, so you really don't have to watch every single minute. But, yeah, the bosses think I get it at 4:30 in the morning.
Mike prides himself on not paying attention.
Is Eli Manning a Hall of Famer?
Yes.
Oh, man.
But Mike can't stand him, so I'll defer to Mike on this.
He should not be, but he will be. I mean, they will vote him in because, everybody likes Eli Manning, but does he really truly belong? No, he had 2 magical runs. He has these 2 great Super Bowls. He knocks off the Patriots. But other than that, the guy is a below average quarterback. And just the numbers speak to it. He doesn't belong in the Hall. But he will get in because he won the 2 Super Bowls and because he's got the Eli O face. And everybody seems to like, oh, shucks, Eli Manning. And I don't.
And it's also people vote people in the Hall of Fame. It's not a computer or statistical analysis. I mean, the human beings that vote people into the Hall of Fame all seemingly like Eli Manning. I mean, what's not to like about him? He seems like a nice guy, so I think that's going to help him. And we're not going to ignore the fact that the team he beat in the Super Bowl, both of those were the New England Patriots, one of which undefeated. So I think that yes, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Do I think he's an all-time great quarterback? No. Do I think he was ever a top 5 quarterback of his generation at any point while he was playing? No. But he's still going to end up in the Hall of Fame.
Who's on your Mount Rush? Both of you guys, give me your Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks. All time.
Tom Brady 1, Tom Brady 2. No, Tom Brady for me, Joe Montana. That's tricky after that. I guess Brady, Montana, Unitas. I saw him play a lot. And Elway maybe? Peyton Manning? I guess Peyton Manning. I'll take Peyton Manning over Elway.
All right, Mike.
That's tough. All right, we'll go Joe Namath, Chad Pennington, Mark Sanchez, and let's do Ryan Fitzpatrick. He had a great Jets career.
Yeah,
really? Fitzmagic. Yeah, he would be great. When you sit there and you put your shows together, we know NFL is king when it comes to content. Or what percentage of your show will you put on NFL just on any given day?
I honestly don't think. I'm not trying to cop out. I don't think we look at it that way. I think whatever our show is that day is whatever will appeal to the masses the most. If there is a slice of pizza that somebody is dipping into milk, which has happened ridiculously, that will trump anything with the NFL for us, right? If there is the blue dress versus the yellow dress, whatever that is, bigger than anything NFL. Whatever, El Camino, the Breaking Bad movie, is right there with the NFL. Whatever is the hottest trending thing that we think our fans, our fouls care about the most is what we're going to go with. In its simplest form, our job is to appeal to the sports fan. The sports fan is not always thinking about sports 24/7. What they are thinking about is what interests them and what they can talk about with their friends. So 90% of the time it may be sports, 10% of the time it may not be, but our whole goal is to attract as many people that way as possible.
How much talk was there about the recent video that Mike tweeted out of him? It looked like you were trying to maybe tackle a heavy bag in a gym.
Oh,
yeah. That was during your Antonio Brown remake video.
Yeah, I was calling myself Babtonio Brown, and, I take on a dummy that was moving. So it was dummy versus dummy, and somehow the dummy won the other one. So I lost that one. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously like a great topic. And, you see, obviously I'm an athletic, let's say, I'm good at sports.
No, you're not.
No, yeah, it's clear. You just got to watch the video. So anytime I'm taking place in some sort of sporting event, yes, that should be the main topic, all right? Because I really do shoot to the top.
Go back to Antonio Brown a minute. If you're an NFL owner, do you bring him back to your team if he's ever cleared to play again?
No, I wouldn't, because for 2 reasons. One, I don't think he's going to be cleared. And 2, I hate to say it this way, what he may have done, allegedly, off the field is way worse than anything that you could talk about on the field, and that would deserve penalty in itself. But we're just going to look at it from a football perspective because I'm not his lawyer. I'm not investigating whatever he may or may not have done, and those are allegations right now, serious ones at that. But from a football perspective, he plays, in my opinion, the most replaceable position in the sport, which is wide receiver. New England was undefeated with him, and up until, at this point, 6-0 without him, like, he plays a position that is easily replaceable. So I don't want any kind of trouble at that position. I'm not saying I want any kind of trouble and I want anything bad to happen off the field, but let's be realistic. Teams can value it and deal with it more when it comes from their quarterback versus other positions. And so the position, unfortunately, tragically in some cases, matters here.
Yeah, see, I would sign him. I really would. I'd let the dust settle, and there hasn't been any criminal charges.
Until he's signed again.
Okay, then he signs, but then it goes on a list. Talent is always going to take over. If you got the talent, and Antonio Brown has the talent, you're going to find a spot for him. The other guys, these are the troublemakers. They weren't good enough to play in the league anymore, and that's why they're not around. I don't mean Kaepernick. I'm talking about like the Ray Rices of the world. If Ray Rice was good enough, he'd still be in the league. Antonio Brown could still play. Someone's going to sign him pretty soon.
How bad of a look is it for the NFL when somebody like that gets that second, maybe third chance, but Kaepernick can't get a sniff?
Yeah, I think it's terrible, honestly, because Colin Kaepernick literally is taking a stand in order to help as many people as possible be treated properly and not be treated based on the color of their skin or who they love or where they live or their nationality or anything like that. If anyone actually pays attention to what Kaepernick is saying, he just wants people to be treated properly, and he's standing for social justice. And so it's unfortunate that that does not have a place, or he does not have a place in the NFL anymore.
Time to answer your fantasy football questions. For that, we bring in Bob Harris from Football Diehards. Bob, this is the time of year that the bye weeks start to stack up on each other, and perhaps you find yourself on the short end of a position. How do you decide which players to put on waivers if you have to make a roster pickup? How do you part with what you believe is a quality handcuff option?
Yeah, I think at this point, when I'm making those decisions on how to churn the bottom of my roster, it's, I contemplate taking a zero, and I'm not taking a zero. Unless it's maybe kicker or defense, then maybe I'll think it through. Maybe I don't want to let go of a good position player to get a second kicker. Maybe I have the Patriots defense, and I don't want to let go of them. Maybe I'll take a 0 1 week for a defense that's scoring at a historic pace. But beyond that, you just have to be willing to make the hard decisions. And sometimes handcuffs that go by the wayside, sometimes productive weekly players. I think the one thing you try to do is be quick on the waiver wire coming back. Hopefully you can get in front of that and be a little proactive with the players you released. But right now, I mean, we're all at the point of the season where you need to make moves, and you're going to have to make some hard decisions. Don't be afraid to make them. Pull the trigger.
All right, so Mahomes gets hurt, Rivers dinged up. Are there any quarterbacks that you see on a lot of waiver wires you think are worth picking up for a couple of weeks, or are you looking to make a trade right now?
Yeah, I think, for me, it's real hard to trade for quarterbacks. I'm looking to pick guys up. And honestly, a quarterback, I'm willing to take anyone who has a job. And look, if it's a short-term thing, I'll even take guys that have short-term jobs. And maybe Ryan Tannehill doesn't have a permanent position. Maybe a Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't have a permanent position. Sometimes you have to do horrible things to get through a week. But mostly I'm looking for unsexy guys who have long-term jobs. I can think of Matt Stafford comes to mind as a guy who's been probably more productive, you think, just outside the quarterback one range. But any given week, he can put up quarterback one numbers. Guys like that, Teddy Bridgewater is going to have a shelf life, but if you can get one more week at Arizona, try and play that. Jimmy Garoppolo not putting up huge production, but the team is winning and he's having some success, so that works in his favor as well.
All right, I know there's a lot of Kerryon Johnson owners. He injured that knee in Detroit. Do you see a backup from that stable of backs in Detroit that could earn some owners some points here?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little tricky. Ty Johnson seems like the natural pivot. And by the way, Kerryon is going on injured reserve, so his season's over. You need to make some moves. Maybe keep an eye on what Detroit's doing in terms of free agency. C.J. Anderson's still out there, a guy who was on their roster. I know they recently worked out Jeremy Hill. Don't be afraid to throw a proactive move at any of those kind of free agent guys who are out there working out right now. And that list includes like Benny Cunningham, Jay Ajayi, to kind of get in front of those guys. But in Detroit in particular, it seems like Ty Johnson's going to have at least a role in the receiving game. I might give that a shot. And if you go below that, I mean, J.D. McKissick, maybe he has a shot too. If you have room on your roster, sure, take flyers on guys like that.
All right, viewer question. Joshua Smith wants to know, would you drop Deshaun Jackson for either Kenny Stills or Ty Johnson?
Boy, you know, I probably would right now. Again, you have to make hard decisions sometimes. We like what we saw from Deshaun Jackson when he was on the field. We don't know exactly when he's getting back. It's been a slow process. I heard there was a week 7 to week 9 window. He didn't even appear to be close last week. I mean, they didn't even hardly work him. So, yeah, I'd be willing to make those moves. And you know, again, keep an eye on the waiver wire. If he gets back in the mix, try and jump back in on it. But for right now, the Philadelphia offense isn't going great guns, and he's not doing anything.
All right, another viewer, thoughts on a trade below half-point PPR. I'm chasing a run in the playoffs here. Give Kamara, get Cooper.
No, running backs are too precious. Look, Alvin Kamara might be a short-term absence. And look, we mentioned, you know, like Patrick Mahomes is a guy who's out for a little while. Maybe that's someone you can trade for. I'd be looking more for trading for an Alvin Kamara, more for a Pat Mahomes, and hopefully I get a deal on them, and I'm going to have them down the stretch run when I'm heading into my playoffs.
So never trade a running back, especially a quality running back. Bob, thank you very much. We'll talk to you again next week. You can catch more of Bob on Sirius XM Radio from 6 to 8. You can also follow him on footballdiehards.com and on Twitter. More questions, you can send them to me at Jack Doles, and next week we'll try and answer those on Big Game Bound with Bob Harris. Well, that'll wrap up another week of Big Game Bound. Thanks for spending your time with us. And a big thank you to our correspondents, Burt Griffin, Rob Collins, and Marc Carpenter, our analysts, Ty Halleck and Bob Harris, and our guests, Evan Cohen and Mike Babchick, the morning men from Sirius XM Radio. Our producer, Spencer Wheelock, and our crew, I'm Jack Doles. Enjoy Week 8 of the National Football League, and we'll see you again next week.